All right, so today we're going deep on the history of Pepsi. And you know what's really interesting is it all started in a pharmacy.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's always kind of intrigued me.
That's what made you want to do this deep dive, right?
Yes, it's always fascinating to me how these, these huge global companies, how they start out in a way that you just wouldn't expect.
And we've got a great source for this one, The History of Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
It's a PDF, and it actually mentions some pretty crazy things. Did you know Pepsi actually went bankrupt at one point?
Oh, wow.
And it was the first American product sold in the USSR.
It's true. It's not. It's not a straight line to success. There are so many twists and turns.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to dive into today. So let's start at the very beginning in 1893 with a pharmacist named Caleb Bradham in North Carolina.
Oh.
What was he trying to do?
Well, so picture this. Caleb's working in his pharmacy, and he's got this idea for a health drink. He wants to create something refreshing and invigorating. Kind of like the Coca-Cola that was gaining popularity, but he wants his drink to aid digestion and give you energy too.
Okay, so he's tapping into that health and wellness trend.
Yeah.
Even back then.
Exactly. Even back then.
What did this early version of Pepsi look like?
Well, it was a mixture of carbonated water, sugar, vanilla, some essential oils, and importantly, cola nut extract, and he called it Brad's drink.
Brad's drink. It doesn't quite have the same ring to it as Pepsi, does it?
No, not really. And Caleb realized that. So a few years later, he changed the name to the much catchier Pepsi Cola, playing off the word pepsin, a digestive enzyme, and cola from the cola nut.
I see. That's smart, even if the drink was mostly sugar and fizz. Linking it to pepsin made people think it was healthy.
Exactly, and that was a strategy that worked back then.
Oh, for sure. From a business history perspective, it's brilliant.
Yeah, and it's a strategy that's still used today, highlighting certain ingredients or benefits, real or perceived.
Yeah, for sure. And with Pepsi, it really took off, right?
Oh, yeah.
They started franchising and expanding.
That's right. They officially incorporated as a company in 1902, and by 1910, they had 240 franchises across 24 states.
Wow.
Their slogan was, exhilarating, invigorating, aids digestion.
So they're really leaning into that health angle.
Absolutely.
But then World War I happened, and things got a little rough for Pepsi.
They did. Sugar prices skyrocketed because of the war, and it became difficult to produce the drink affordably.
Yeah.
And that actually led to Pepsi declaring bankruptcy in 1923.
What?
Yeah.
So after such a promising start, they hit a major roadblock. I mean, that could have been the end of Pepsi right there.
You would think so, but this is where their resilience comes in. So the brand changed hands a few times after the bankruptcy, kind of a turbulent period.
Okay.
But then in 1931, Charles Guth acquired Pepsi. He was the president of Loft Candy Company.
Okay.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, all ears. What did this Charles Guth do?
Well, Guth was a very savvy businessman. He saw the potential in Pepsi even during the Depression, and he reformulated the drink. And then, get this, he introduced the 12-ounce bottle for 5 cents.
Hold on, 12 ounces.
12 ounces in 1934.
For the same price as Coke's 6-ounce bottle.
That's right.
That's a bold move, especially during the Depression.
It was bold, but Guth understood that people needed more value for their money.
Yeah.
Especially then.
Wow. So Pepsi's first major setback led to one of their most successful strategies.
It's a great lesson, isn't it?
Definitely.
Even in a crisis, there's opportunity.
Yeah.
And Pepsi adapted to not just survive, but thrive.
From a North Carolina drugstore to overcoming bankruptcy and becoming a national player, Pepsi's early years were a roller coaster.
They really were.
It's amazing how those early events shaped the company.
Yeah.
But how did they become this global icon? That's what we'll dive into next.
Yeah.
So we saw Pepsi go from, a pharmacy drink to overcoming bankruptcy,
Yeah.
become a national brand.
Yeah.
But how did they become a global icon? Their marketing, their cultural influence.
Yeah. Their marketing played a huge role for sure.
Yeah.
And they've really become a part of our culture, haven't they?
Looking back at the timeline in this PDF, it seems like their story intersects with major historical events. And we could start with World War II.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. So during World War II, many companies were looking to show their patriotism.
Okay.
So in 1941, Pepsi embraced the red, white, and blue color scheme for their logo and branding.
Wow, that iconic logo. It's practically synonymous with Americana now.
It is. And it wasn't just about the look, it was a strategic move to align themselves with national pride during the war.
I see.
It helped solidify their image as an all-American brand, and I think it fostered trust and loyalty among consumers.
That's a really good point. It shows how companies can leverage cultural moments to build their brand.
Absolutely.
Then in 1950s, there's another shift. Pepsi starts targeting a younger audience.
Right. So this is when Alfred Steele became CEO, and he was married to Joan Crawford, the Hollywood star.
Wait, Joan Crawford.
Yes, Joan Crawford.
The actress.
The one and only.
She was a Pepsi spokeswoman.
She was.
That's incredible.
It was a brilliant marketing move. Having a glamorous Hollywood star like Joan Crawford associated with your brand, it helped reposition Pepsi as the drink for a younger generation.
Wow, so this is really the beginning of influencer marketing.
It really is.
They were ahead of their time.
In so many ways.
What about their global expansion? Did that start around this time too?
Yes, it did. A pivotal moment came in 1959 at the American National Exhibition in Moscow.
Okay.
This was during Cold War.
Yeah.
And Pepsi became the first American product to be sold in the USSR.
Wow, I mean, the Cold War is going on. And Pepsi is bridging the gap with a sugary drink.
I know, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
That's a huge cultural milestone.
It really was a bold move by Pepsi, and it signaled their ambition for global reach.
Yeah, they were thinking big. Okay, so they're solidifying their American image. They're appealing to a younger generation. They're breaking into new markets.
Yeah.
But what about the product itself? I mean, weren't the 1970s all about the Pepsi Challenge?
Oh yeah, the Pepsi Challenge. This is where Pepsi really went head-to-head with Coke.
Okay.
They launched these blind taste tests, and a lot of people actually preferred the taste of Pepsi over Coke.
Really?
I know, it might be surprising to some.
Yeah, that's interesting. They were so confident they put their product to the test against their biggest rival.
I know. It was a risky move, but it was also brilliant marketing.
How so?
Well, they turned this taste test into a national conversation.
Okay.
Their slogan, "The choice of the new generation," was a direct challenge to Coke's dominance.
I see.
And it really resonated with younger audiences.
Yeah, they wanted something different.
Exactly.
And that rebellious, youthful image continued into the 1980s with their celebrity endorsements.
You're right. The 80s saw Pepsi sign deals with huge stars. Michael Jackson, Madonna, Lionel Richie.
Oh yeah, I remember those Michael Jackson commercials. Everyone was talking about them.
They were like mini movies with huge production value.
Yeah, it felt like they were changing the advertising game.
They were. They showed the power of connecting your product to pop culture.
Yeah.
And using celebrities to create a buzz.
Speaking of Coke, what about when Coke launched New Coke?
Oh, the new Coke debacle.
Yeah.
That was a massive flop. People hated it.
I know.
It's a cautionary tale, isn't it?
It is.
Messing with a beloved product can backfire.
Big time. And Pepsi was right there to capitalize on it.
Oh, absolutely. They ran ads mocking New Coke and highlighting their own classic taste.
So smart.
It was a great example of understanding consumer psychology.
Yeah, and understanding your competitor's strategy.
Right.
So we've seen Pepsi become this master of marketing and pop culture.
Yeah.
But they went from a soda company to a global food and beverage giant.
They did.
How did that happen? So we've seen Pepsi go from a pharmacy drink to this master of marketing and pop culture.
Yeah, they really had their finger on the pulse of what people wanted.
But they didn't stop at soda, did they? They became this global food and beverage powerhouse.
Right, and that's all about diversification. It started with the merger with Frito-Lay in 1965.
Chips and a drink. It's hard to imagine them as separate companies now.
I know, right? This merger was huge. It brought together two giants, Pepsi's beverages and Frito-Lay's snack foods.
A match made in heaven.
You could say that.
And they didn't stop there, did they?
Nope, they kept going.
What did they acquire?
Well, in the late 90s and early 2000s, they acquired Tropicana Quaker Oats and Gatorade.
Wow. So from soda to juice, oatmeal, and sports drinks.
They were covering all the bases.
That's smart. Diversifying their offerings like that.
Very smart. It's a way to achieve growth and mitigate risk.
Okay.
By expanding beyond a single product, they made their business more resilient.
It's like not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
And then they made another shift, didn't they? Focusing more on health-conscious options.
Yeah, they did. This was really under Indra Nooyi's leadership. She became CEO in 2006.
Okay.
And she really pushed for healthier choices. She recognized that people were concerned about sugar and artificial ingredients.
Yeah.
So PepsiCo had to adapt.
This is when we see products like Pepsi Zero Sugar.
Right, and they started promoting healthier options within their existing brands, too.
So they were aligning themselves with changing consumer preferences.
Exactly. And taking a more proactive approach to health.
And that's continued, hasn't it? Even their celebrity endorsements reflect this shift.
Absolutely. You see Pepsi Zero Sugar campaigns featuring stars like Bad Bunny.
Okay.
They're still embracing pop culture, but with a health-conscious twist.
It's amazing how they've constantly reinvented themselves.
Yeah.
Those classic Cindy Crawford ads in the 90s, Beyoncé at the Super Bowl halftime show. Pepsi has always been a part of these big cultural moments.
And of course, you can't talk about Pepsi without mentioning Coke.
Coca-Cola Wars.
The Cola Wars.
Yeah.
It's more than just sales figures. It impacts pricing, marketing, global expansion.
It's like a constant battle for consumer attention.
Exactly. They push each other to innovate.
And the result?
A global giant. PepsiCo operates in over 200 countries, with annual revenue exceeding $86 billion.
From a North Carolina drugstore to that, it's incredible.
It really is a remarkable story.
Their story shows what's possible with smart branding, resilience, understanding consumers, and adapting to change.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
They've navigated everything. Economic downturns, global conflicts, shifting values. And they always find a way to stay relevant.
It makes you wonder what they'll do next.
What will Pepsi's next evolution look like?
Will they double down on healthy options? Will they venture into something entirely new?
Only time will tell.
And knowing Pepsi, it'll be interesting to watch.
Well, I think we've uncovered some amazing insights today, from Pepsi's humble beginnings to the global giant they are now. It's a story full of innovation, resilience, and a knack for knowing what people want. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Pepsi's history. As for what's next for Pepsi, I guess we'll all have to wait and see what they come up with next.